Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Observable Flutter. My name is Craig Labenz, and I'm your host. And today I am joined by a frequent friend of the pod, third time returning guest, I think, probably, to learn us all good about AI skills. Oh, I'm on the wrong screen. I was supposed to be on this screen. Whoops. But he was on the thumbnail anyway. There's never really any surprise. But anywho, yes, to learn us all good on AI skills, a thing that I, sitting right here, don't really know much about yet because I've been working on other stuff the last few months. So I've fallen pretty far behind. And I phoned a friend and I said, Rody, want to come teach me about skills while everyone's watching? And he said, sure do. So let's get into it. Before we do, though, do recall this is the Flutter community. We all know what that means. Okay. As previously teased in multiple formats, today's guest is Rody Davis, AI extraordinaire, DevRel extraordinaire, all around superstar, mega friend of the pod. Rody, welcome back to Observable Flutter.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so, well, actually, before not everyone, I think, will be as familiar with you and your general work and what all you do as they would like to be. So maybe still take a few seconds and just kind of introduce yourselves.
Sure.
Yourself.
Yeah. I'm Rody. I'm on the DevRel team for Anti-Gravity. Supported a lot of projects that people may know me from, starting with material design, lit web components, getting really involved in web standards, doing cross Google developer solutions, as well as Project IDX and Firebase Studio. And that whole time, I've been deeply involved with helping with Flutter and the other various teams that we have at Google. So I'm very passionate about building in any screen and any framework. So
nice. And the author of Signals. And we've got Signals' biggest fan in the
awesome.
in the audience today. Okay, so yeah, you've been around many a block in the Google neighborhood, and as you said, supported all those various projects. Currently on Anti-Gravity, I've been using Anti-Gravity on, well, not only on the stream, but every time I look at any code for the last few months. So I think Anti-Gravity is off to a great start. But today we're here to specifically talk about skills. This is a thing that you have and I lack. It's a thing. It's emerging, or maybe it's emerged. I think the emergence is basically complete at this point. Everyone is doing skills, but I have been very busy. If folks who watch the stream know that I've basically been doing nothing for the last few months other than building this demo. So I've fallen pretty far behind, and I'm ready to catch up. So
maybe actually that'd be a good thing to talk about first is over the last couple months, skills have emerged as this thing, but they're actually moved into a standard, which I think is like a really great time to talk about it because so many tools have aligned on this thing. So it means that something's going right.
I had accidentally muted myself. Yeah, you want to share a little bit about maybe some of the evolution of skills from when they were absolutely brand new? Also, just contrast them with like RAG and MCP servers, because these things are kind of all, vaguely similar.
Yeah, and a lot of people may be thinking like, well, I'm using this thing and it's working, or I've tried this thing in the past and it was too much. One of the cool things about like this journey to skills is if everybody remembers, like probably about just over a year ago, the first thing that we could really use as our lever to control the model were system instructions. So like you could say that was the biggest thing that people could do is like, okay, like talk like a pirate, or like, you're an expert in this subject, or, I'm giving you this context about this code base. So every time I start a chat, like it's going to be at least closer to how you want it to sound than it would have been by default. Because all the models, unless you're loading like a LoRa, like a fine tuning adapter, are going to be just the generic default. So after system instructions came out, then we were able to dynamically load context with like a rules file. And, there's nothing in the model that deal with rules. It's just like an agent harness. We'll usually just look for a file and then load it as a context when you start a new chat. And this was really great. This allowed us to at least compress everything that we needed into a tight scope. But the problem was you had to pay that cost of context every single time you opened a chat. It was hard to update. So, like, for example, if you wanted to update your rules file, you would have to start a new chat and you'd lose whatever you were working on because it had the old rules file. Then we launched MCP servers. And MCP servers were a really awesome way to give your tool ability to do things. So you could define, like, for example, the Dart tool has an MCP server for formatting files, analyzing, searching pub, tasks that are very clear and scoped were really great to augment the model's ability to kind of take action. The problem with that, though, is, like, as many people know, once you get a couple MCP servers installed, you might have like 150 tools or more. And with tools and rules, you're paying that context window even before you've entered your first like text into the chat. So people are looking for a new option. And so one of the things that came out was skills. Skills fix a lot of the issues that people have by doing a couple things. One, they are lazily loaded. So a skill, which we'll go over later, is just a markdown file with front matter, which is just the YAML at the top of the file. And only the names and descriptions are passed to the model in the chat. So for example, if you had 300 skills, only you're passing like 300 titles like and descriptions, which is way smaller than like full definitions and a bunch of other things. And then from there, the model can decide if it wants to read the skill and learn more, which then can read in the whole context. So this gives you the ability to progressively disclose context to the model, which for even really small models, you can do amazing things with skills. So that brings us to today, where we have a mix of MCP servers, rules, and skills, and they all have basically serving their purpose in the right way. So, like, for example, you can have a skill that teaches an MCP server how to be used. Like if you're building a customer support bot, you can say, like, refund order could be a tool in MCP, but a skill could be, here's how to deal with a customer that's wanting to refund their order. Like, yes, there is the actual method call itself, but it's also like, here's how to talk about it. Here's the things you can offer. Here's like the ways that we do, you kind of deal with that, the anxiety and stuff like that. So it's like a really cool way to give everything else as context. And then plus skills can have resources and scripts and other things too.
What a mighty fine summary. Yeah, that was, I certainly don't have really anything to add on to that. It does, other than I guess it is the logical conclusion of all those previous iterations, and especially because of the lazy loading and the selective inclusion into contexts. Enormous, like all of the information and all the skills in any package that you're using or just your own project or whatever are potentially relevant, and but also just in tremendous amount of bloat on every single request if they were to just all be thrown in there. So
yeah, so maybe real quick, like there's two things. One is at what point in your journey are you using skills, MCPs, and rules? And the other thing I'd like to say is I feel like there's a lot of weird ways that skills are being used right now. Like you can invoke a skill as a workflow, which is really cool to have repeatable stuff. And also the fact that it's just such an exciting time to be able to think about, like, as authors and developers, like, how many times have I done a workflow where I'm so frustrated that it's like the model's not getting it? Like, this allows you to like give the model a cheat sheet to do exactly what it's going to do. In most cases, you will solve your tasks faster and cheaper which is really the reason why a lot of people are like, well, the models are getting smarter and the training data is getting better. So like, does it even matter? Like, are we just investing into a bunch of tools that are just kind of band-aids? And to that, I'll definitely say that like skills are more than that. They're a way to provide some of the best parts of RAG, where you have like a really rich data set, but also very scoped to your specific projects so that one, it's faster, cheaper, you're making less mistakes, and you can use smaller models.
Nice. There's some good questions in the chat as well to kind of get to. Let's see, JT McFarland. Don't know what JT's first name is. Maybe Justin Timberlake McFarland says our skills and interface it can be given different MCP implementations. So I think this is pretty interesting. MCP servers obviously have their own discoverability kind of mechanism, but how do you what's a good candidate to put in a skill versus a bad candidate?
So I guess people may not realize that they're not building with agents directly, but a MCP server actually passes an array of tools to the model. You don't get to decide if the MCP server is dynamically loaded or not. So like you're always paying the cost of those MCP servers and then all their subsequent tools. With skills, you're not even loading anything because it's in the chat side, not the model side. The model may have the tools like run bash script, read and write file, and browse the web, but the actual model itself no longer has to pay the cost of all those tools. So then you can, when it reads the skill, it may say like, oh, go run the Dart tool to do this, or go fetch this resource from here, or make a curl request or whatever. And so it's able to dynamically and progressively disclose how to do something, as opposed to at the very top, the model just having like, here's everything you can possibly do and good luck. So
one thing you just said gets at a bit of uncertainty or just confusion that I have around this, where you said it's like the model might have these tools, but different things are just on the chat side.
Mm-hmm.
But isn't all of the super dynamic stuff happening on the chat side also amount to a call to the model to sort out what is going on? Like, you were saying something that it's like you kind of get these benefits without having to burden the model with their definition, but doesn't the model have to decide what skills to load?
So it's up to the spec says that you can load in the skill definitions and titles as like an XML array that you're providing to the model in like the beginning of the chat, like maybe a system instruction or whatever. Now, that's just the spec. What you could do is enable and disable skills, so you could filter that list. You can also use a RAG to query what skills might be relevant for the task even before you provide it as a list to the model. But most times people are just letting the model decide from that list, and it's usually doing a pretty good job. Because like, for example, an MCP server is scoped to utility, whereas a skill is scoped to task. Like an MCP server may be, this is the Dart and Flutter tooling MCP server that can do a variety of things like format and analyze and search pub. A skill would be like, here's how to add FFI to your application, for a Flutter app, or here's how to deploy your Flutter application to Firebase on the web, with hosting. So it can involve multiple things. It's like very compressed context. And so it's like for accomplishing a goal as opposed to just like general utility, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So you're basically just orbiting this question from Randall. When the LLM asks for skill details, are you paying for a complete new interaction behind the scenes? And it sounds like what you're paying for is progressive, as it might, query a list and then read that list and then, oh, this one looks interesting. Now I'll go get that whole definition. Yeah.
And even in the skill, it can progressively disclose its resources. So for example, every skill just has a skill.md, which is a file in a directory. And then in the skill.md, it may reference something in its own resources folder or scripts folder. So the model can then decide to read the file and the resources, but it's up to the model if it wants to keep researching further. Sometimes it may read the skill and not use it at all.
Interesting. Okay, so in terms of what we want to get to today, Rody has a couple demos that he wants to show, and then I am going to take a stab at actually adding skills to a package of my own, create, or just a package that I have on pub.dev, and we'll see if I can, we can do kind of the whole dev loop of add a skill, validate the skill. There's a tool that the Flutter team is working on to validate skills. And it's actually non-AI code. It's like old-fashioned deterministic code. We'll get to that later. And then maybe even see that skill happen or like assist some development at the end of the whole thing to close the loop. Often the last thing that I aspire to do on an episode of Observable Flutter to close the loop, sometimes we run out of time for, but we'll see how far we can get. So Rody, you have some demos. Are you ready to start there?
Sure. Yeah. And I guess maybe before that, like, where have you used skills? Like, what's your current take on like where they sit in your workflows?
Not terribly in them. So I'm very excited to.
But you use MCP servers, I assume.
Yes. Yeah. But honestly, basically just the Flutter, the official Dart MCP server, because that allows Gemini to run tests, read linter output, like all of it really connects Gemini to the terminal, or sorry, to the IDE. And I've been getting really, really far on that, or just with that basic setup. But the Flutter team is adding skills for Flutter. And, I actually don't even really know if my IDE is pulling those in yet. So that's an interesting question on its own. Yeah, I'm ready to get ramped up on them. Is basically where I'm at.
Are you using like an Agents MD or Gemini MD to like customize your chat or anything beyond the basics?
Not really. It's been doing, honestly, Gemini's just been doing a really darn good job. The things that I've been asking it for in the project that I've been working on, like if I'm awake, I'm working on it since mid-January. This demo that was the last few episodes of the stream. The things that I've been using Gemini for on that are writing tests. So I do not have test-driven development. I have laggard tests development, and it is very good at writing and updating tests.
Yes.
And then I like read the tests, of course, to make sure like,
No, I'm the same way.
True equals true. Yeah. Some people don't read the tests. I don't know why I would even have tests if I don't at least read them.
And also a pro tip is have the model also write asserts, because those are also really good for like if it makes sense in your head, might as well make sense in the code too. And so the model can like run and evaluate and see where the errors actually are.
Yeah. Asserts are an interesting thing. I mean, they're all over the Flutter repository, but basically every time I write an assert in my own code, I also think like, this is a dev only check. This assert is stripped out of the production build. So should this just be an exception that I catch and like handle in a way?
It's more actually for the beginning of the project when you're like, do I expect this to be true? Because I will move things to test, but it's really good for like new, fresh code to be like, just like be the most verbose as possible. Because also when you have the model like write asserts, it's also like kind of doing its own grounding to make sure you're on the same page on what it should be.
True. And they're always at a minimum high quality documentation. But what I'm thinking isn't more like, should those establishments of your concept of your own code base exist?
For sure.
But like, should the assert actually just be an exception?
Agreed.
If the assert's gonna fail in some path, but I never found that in development, it's gonna like crash the app in production.
The thing that caught me a couple times was like using an assert to make sure the string is actually not empty and not null, like after it's been trimmed. So like sometimes I would have a string with a space, and then because of some parsing up above, and then it's like, well, it wasn't null and it wasn't empty, but it still didn't show anything. So
So I do that kind of test driven AI development. And the other thing is like, oh, I just realized I'm going to need this kind of weird widget that does a very specific thing. The two examples that come to mind recently for me were I wanted a little scrolling marquee widget,
Nice.
and Gemini did a great job writing that. And then I was like, oh, you know what? I want a triple click widget that's almost like a Konami code, like it's a get
Oh
out of
yeah,
jail
yeah,
free
yeah.
thing. Yeah. I want a triple click widget. It's like I could write the timer and like think about that logic, and has the duration elapsed, reset the count. But it's like that's not what's interesting about life. So Gemini just nailed that.
Amazing.
And then also the third thing is trig, because even though I have a math minor, I am about as good at trig as I am at flapping my arms and flying.
Yeah.
So Gemini always writes my trig.
Yeah, I'm like, I know how to do this matrix transform, but yeah, how about you just complete it for me?
I'm similar to that except for me, it's I don't know how to complete this matrix transform. So why don't you do it for me?
Yeah,
yeah. Okay, so are you ready for these demos? Okay.
Yeah. Cool.
And then if you could make your text a little bigger, and by a little I mean a lot bigger.
Yeah, I am used to microscopic font, which everybody makes fun of me for. So let's go ahead and get this up. I think
it's always a bit of a juggling act. Got to close some of the side panels.
All right, cool. Well, I'm going to need both, so I'll just open these back up. All right, so let's start with, this is just for people. This is like a genuine demo I'm working on. It's not really important for the subject, but I want to talk about skills here. So like we said, like skills, one of the most amazing parts about it is the distribution. Like you literally are just sending files and folders. There's a lot of tools out there to make it easier to clone them and get them from places and update them. But like, I don't know, I'm just so excited that it's so simple. And then let me just like clear up some of these. And like, yeah, you don't have to like run any binaries. You don't have to get anything set up. And that kind of also makes it easier for you as someone who's like working with like a new teammate. You can literally just put these in the code base that you're sending to people. And I think that really makes that experience awesome. So let's go to like, I created skills for a lot of my favorite Dart and Flutter documentation pages, including some Firebase. I'll show you how to do it in a second. But so if I go to like records here, a skill.md is literally like at minimum, like the things you need is the front matter. So that's the triple dashes, a name and description, and your content. That's it. You could never do anything else with skills and you'd still have a great time. But one of the cool things that you can do is do things like metadata, which in this case, because I generated these, I have the URL from where I pulled it from, the last modified, so I can easily check to see if I need to get an update. And like, it's amazing how much documentation already is really close to what we need for skills. And you may be thinking, wow, that's a lot of skills, but let's also show you like how cool it works. So
I was in fact thinking that.
Yeah. And okay, so the cool thing, I'm in anti-gravity. You should be able to invoke skills, which is like kind of an awesome way to say like, I know the task I'm doing. Can you just load it for me? But in this case, we can say, in Flash, let's do planning. I want to say like let's do a question. How can I use CN with FFI? So this question should load the skill. If not, we may need to restart the chat. Okay, so it found a skill, analyzed it. It found another skill, analyzed it. And then now you have this really cool experience where it doesn't have to guess. It has all the documentation ready to go and like can provide detailed ways on how to do something. This isn't guessing in the training data set. It's up to date, like bleeding edge. And this kind of allows you to like have the experience of like really fresh data while also like using like really small models. Cool.
Yeah. And, you know, this example, because it looks like this is maybe some auto-generated stuff from official Dart documentation.
Yep.
It's like, obviously, if Gemini or ChatGPT or Claude, you know, any of them, if they don't know how to look up, or if they don't know the answer immediately, they've already known how to just search for things and then read.
Right, but it's discover, fail, search, fail, search more, find answer, search, and then do it. So it's like 8 or 10 steps to get there versus like a skill is like
down to 2.
This is how you do it. Just do it. Yeah.
Read list of skills, find interesting skill, read detail of skill. Yeah.
And then search is a fallback, right? Because search is slow. This is like way fast.
Right. So yes, all of that. And then B, there's very little that you have at your disposal for things that are not necessarily fully documented. So do you find that it's also valuable to kind of canonicalize the patterns that a project goes for in skills, or is that best left in like the big mega system prompt? How do you think about that?
So, okay, for me, I reach for it when the more obscure thing I'm working on, or the thing that I feel like if the model keeps getting it wrong, that's when I usually make a skill. For example, I was working in flat buffers in Dart, and it's like an old library we made, it can read and write binary, some cool stuff. But like it was having trouble on the Dart version of the way it does serialization and unpacking and whatever. So I literally just like grabbed like the page that talks about the overview and the syntax and then like how to read and write it. And then I grabbed the Dart part and I just made a skill that says like flat buffers in Dart or something like that in a description. And then it like never had an issue from then on out, which is really cool. And so things like that, where it's like, you're a domain expert or about the subject and you're just like, I want to not keep retelling like it to use this thing or how to do this thing. You just kind of can compress it there.
Yeah. That kind of drives home a thing you were saying earlier about skills being like a cheat sheet, and of course, yes, the LLM, whichever one you're using, can go study for the test and actually learn.
Yep.
Or you could just give it the cheat sheet with the answer keys and it's like, oh, well, I know how to answer question 10.
That's actually kind of a good point you bring up. I feel like the difference is, like when a teacher would be like, you can bring the book with you to take the test, or if you did a cheat sheet yourself. And I feel like every time you had like the entire book, it was way slower because you'd be like flipping around the pages, trying to figure out which part it was. But if you like had prepared ahead of time and you just wrote a one pager, man, I like got done with those tests like super quick. So yeah.
Dude, that is such a great point. I haven't thought about an open book test in forever, but they were always such a trap.
I know there was like
tests were way harder. Yeah, and all of a sudden you realize like, oh, I don't have time to read this whole textbook in the time, in the hour that I have to take this test.
Like which questions am I going to do it on? So.
Right.
Yeah.
Man, I haven't thought about that in forever. Okay, great question here from Zach. Is there a way for the model? Is there a way for the model to analyze the code base for the current project's best practices and architecture, and then write skills itself? And they're also mentioning like a just-in-time thing, where I do presume that we'd still save those skills so next time they're available. But yeah, how do you think about bootstrapping skills and maybe doing it on demand? Totally. Where's your head at there?
Yeah. Okay. That's a great point. So for me, in my the skills that I generate here, I made like a very simple VS Code extension. I do not plan on releasing it. It's just like a proof of concept. But like, I just wanted to show that it is really not complicated on like doing this stuff. For this extension, I just take a URL and I crawl all of the subpaths and I just convert them to Markdown and save them. So like you can do this in a deterministic way from like a top down. for your project, there's two things to think about. There's is it an architecture and design pattern? If that is the case, you probably want that as like your agents MD or Gemini MD file, because for that project, you want it to load in and say, this is the state management we're using. This is how we do routing. This is how we do, anything in the app. But for specific, like, let's say you have like services and like, this is maybe working with Firestore vector search, something very like for this one project. I would probably have skills in there on like how you're doing vector search in context of your data model or your industry you're in. And I think that really helps like kind of ground the subject matter. And if it's a workflow, you could probably use it in a skill too. But like, if it's so repeatable, probably just write a script.
Yeah. Yeah. I have so a couple other good comments here. Randall also says after a session, he sometimes tells the LLM to save any learnings
To a rules
in
file.
new skills files, or rules files, which definitely makes sense. I've been using my own package a bit, and it's not very popular. So Gemini doesn't really know anything about it, and I don't have any skills files yet. And so I've seen the status quo of how Gemini uses this, which is like not bad given that I have examples in the code base at this point. This is the Genlatte demo that I've been working on.
Yeah.
But also it's actually very good at being like, oh, well, this is locally installed, and it'll just go like plumb through my like Dart SDK installation path and find where like pub has downloaded the code to, and then just read code and figure it out. But again, I can just see as it's sitting there, like learning how to use this library again for the 29th time.
Yeah.
I am excited to add some skills to it and hopefully observe like that was snappier.
Yes.
And then also like you just pay less for that, because when an LLM is slow, it's also charging you. It's like a lawyer. You're being charged by the hour. So every time you speed it up, you also enjoy a tremendous amount of cost savings.
Yeah. So along that lines, so it's not only saving you on time to finish the task, it's saving you on how much context it has to load in. So the more it searches and explores, that's more filling up your input context. It also can be selective about that context. It can be like, I only need to read this file and I only need to do this part. So, and then also on its output, it can do it in fewer steps. The Gemini skills that were launched, even they did like a bunch of evals and showed that like it was able to increase like the efficiency from like 17% to like 95 or 85% in a lot of cases for using the latest SDK. And it's, a lot of people are like, well, the model should just like know about the thing. It's like, well, yeah, but it like takes time to like get that into the data sets. And also it's not a guarantee, because, you can still go to have the old versions in the data sets. Like it's not always like, tip of head of the internet. Like the models know about the current version of Flutter, the last year's version of Flutter, 3 years ago, the very first version, it's all there, like sitting in the same like embedding space. So.
Yeah, I don't know much about like I almost exclusively use Gemini. I know a lot of folks love other LLMs, and that's great. Gemini
it
at least
to all of them, to be clear. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Gemini at least is still pretty. It does not yet understand super parameters. It just doesn't write super parameters. And like we've got the new underscore, private name variables. I forget the exact name of this feature, are coming out very soon in Dart. It's
and these
just
will
gonna
be good skills. Yeah,
exactly. And without them, I think it's going to be like a year or however long before Gemini's like, oh, I see, I should be doing that thing, because there's so much weight around these older patterns. So yeah, skills as a way to keep pace with, and Flutter releases every 3 months. So there's just constant churn there between what the LLMs know and what we're trying to write now.
So I was working on a project that used Dart extension types, and it was a similar kind of thing where it was like it kept thinking it was talking about extensions, which was different. And then I created a skill that was like, no, this is how I want to like roughly model the XML data as an extension type. And then it like did amazing. It was using like modern syntax. It was using everything I needed to, but you have to provide it like the specific activation for the weights for it to be able to utilize that stuff. And then also that correct grounding. But yeah, super parameters and all these like bleeding edge features, maybe like the implicit enum stuff, like all great things to call out.
Yeah. There's man, people are still just dropping great little nuggets or revelations in the chat. So Mocking Glorious says, so skills creation should be an active decision as projects grow to summarize key information, methodologies, and dependencies. A, I'd say yes. B, and they can also be used across other similar projects. So yeah, how do you?
So there's global skills and there's workspace skills. Global skills would be the ones that I install on my system for if I'm primarily using Flutter and Firebase, I'm going to have a bunch of skills that are just any project I open, it can like, look at these. Workspace skills are be like, for example, the demo I was working on was GenUI. Well, I'm probably going to have some GenUI skills in there. I'm probably going to have Gemini API skills in there and maybe a Firebase skills for like how to use this stuff. So then I go to a different project, and this one may be in Golang and SQLite and something else, and then like, so you can have very scoped skills for like the thing you're building. And then also it's a kind of a little bit back and forth. So you can generate skills like with the LLM, have it do it. You can handwrite them, which I like to do a lot too, like just copy in context and, establish a pattern. But you can find that like, as you're used to the model, you may find that you don't need these skills anymore. You can delete some of them. You may add more. Like it's just your ongoing like second brain for your model, kind of like how Obsidian or other tools like are like that for like our note taking. It's just like a way for the model just to like have this thing that it can dip into.
Yeah. Okay, I pulled down your screen just because we were talking for so long and I figured we could be larger. Do you have any other demos you'd like to share, or should we move into
No, I think
me
we should
adding
start
some
with
skills?
yours. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'm going to rearrange some windows to support this, which means I'll now need to look this direction to see chat. And I need to share my screen. There's the button. Here comes my husky. All right. So while you were delivering an excellent soliloquy to start this, was adding the absolute bare minimum of skills kind of structure to my package. And I have obviously done very little, but as I was sitting here thinking about this, I have quite a long README that outlines a lot of information. And I have also a lot of documentation, just like doc strings. So what I kind of want to do.
So I would say the first skill I would probably do is actually you can either copy the README or you can symlink it, but I would have a skill that is like the name of your project and or like the definition of it, and then a name and description, and literally just have the skill as the overview, as like the README.
I see.
And then we'll break it down into smaller skills.
Yeah. So symlinking into the body of another file isn't really a thing, right? So how would I deal with the front matter for that if I wanted to keep that?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, maybe that doesn't make sense. I feel like maybe it won't make sense for this. Yeah.
So the first thing I wanted to do was just basically ask Gemini, like, study this code.
Well, I was just going to say, so I wanted to show even just having the README is already going to have a really great experience, because then now the model's going to know that it can pull it in based on the description.
Yeah, right. So,
and then
how would we? I guess you could have
you could have the model generate a set of skills.
Yeah, let's give that a start. So
remove line 10 though.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that was I copied that out of another skill. Analyze this code base and write a thorough set of skills files in the agent's skills
So
directory.
let's for the prompt, I would drag in the README first. And I would
Oh,
have it.
into this whole prompt.
Yeah.
Consider the. Do you think I could just say like, consult the README?
You can tag it too, but I was saying like, so instead of having it say like create a set of skills, the first thing you'll probably want to have it do is say define like the core features that make up this package and how to use it.
That.
And then you can like go to like
maybe let's just go into planning mode for this. I think
that's probably a good call. Yeah.
So analyze this code base for the task of creating a thorough set of begin with an outline of all of the tasks necessary.
Maybe for like critical user journeys or like usage of the library.
Necessary. I like critical user journeys. Tasks supporting critical user journeys in this library. Consult the README for basic information. All right, I think I'm going to try this. I'll even let Flash go.
Flash is going to be usually really great at this too.
Yeah, I've been having good luck with Flash. Don't need to turn on all the GPUs.
My default now, pretty much constantly. Yeah.
Okay, so while it cooks, I'm going to read some chat. Oh yeah, there was one up earlier. What did this say? Okay, it's an interesting question. So for UI, Gemini loves a single widget with lots of private methods that return other widgets. But Zach prefers composition. So presumably this could be captured in a skill. And my first thought was I could see that as either like a skill or just a global MD file or like a project-wide agents, Gemini.md or whatever it's called. Or global skill? Like, where would you put this?
That would actually be a rules file. And that's because, and you can have a global one, I believe, too. But that is a design pattern. Now, what you could do is say, like, here's how to, like, construct widgets and state with, like, a mix of how you do state management, how you do, like, layout, and, like, how you do routing. Like, that could be, like, a skill and, like, just how you're building screens and composing them. And so another just tip for people that are like running into that issue with Gemini or like having to deal with that, when the model like generates something, try to follow up and say like, how do I defrag this into my pattern? And that's usually where you can either invoke a skill directly or pass the context and say, okay, now follow our existing pattern in our code base, which is one widget per file. Always use this, no private methods, stuff like that. I found really good luck to like let it just generate and then like kind of basically have a pass to clean it and sort it and organize it.
All right, so I'm starting to skim what it's come up with here. So for anyone who hasn't seen just hints of this library in previous
those are already
streams,
task-driven. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is just very. It's a declarative data loading library. So anyway, that's kind of what we're looking at. It's not meant to be state management. You use it with some other state management. It is just a data loading library. So anyway.
Scroll to the top.
Okay.
Let's scroll down to proposed changes. Okay, that comment block or like right where it says agents/skills, add a comment to that. Say, make sure to include detailed and exhaustive examples for each.
Nice.
And then also say like say like include tips and warnings as well as links to documentation.
Now my documentation only exists as the README on pub.dev, so we'll see how well it sorts that out.
Yeah. But
okay,
that's just in general, like kind of, But I think that'd be good.
I agree. All right, so I don't think this is I don't think what I want to do right now is like actually validate these skills.
That's fine. We should go ahead and just We can always
Just going to say, yeah, first we'll submit this. Oh, I think I was supposed to maybe click review, or maybe it's just going to proceed. Yeah, I don't know if there's like a separate just think about my comments, or if it's think about my comments. And okay, no, we still have proceed as a separate step here. All right.
Oh, right.
Let's do it. And then it'll probably do, honestly, like a pretty darn good job. And then, but I'll like read them carefully and validate them later, which will also create, I'll immediately get to think about the joy of maintaining, like keeping the skills in sync as well, because like any other package, I have ideas for like, oh, this little refactor would be better that way.
So there's a couple things you could do there actually. And I've been exploring with a variety of methods. One, if you're like a package author, I mean, these are markdown files. You could totally use like Mustache or something like that and generate this like you do documentation, like a web page. You could say like, in your build step, you can find your classes and then like replace basically have a way to hot swap your samples and your like in Signals docs. I do have a way to like kind of keep my class documentation and my website documentation in sync. And so it's you can even have the model like generate a way to keep it. But yeah, think about it in terms of like an artifact that you're going to output, not necessarily something that you're going to curate. Now, some people may want to curate it, and that's fine. But I think it is a form of documentation.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I like that perspective. Sam Susi, I've got great news for you. So the question, what's the difference between a README and a skill? Don't they serve the same purpose? I've got super great news about YouTube live videos. At the bottom, there's a scrubber. And you can go back a little bit because we have talked about this super extensively. It is a good question, but it's also been the subject of many of the minutes of this stream so far. And then you put it
thanks
on
for the question.
1.5, 2x speed, and you'll catch right back up and say hi again, and we'll welcome you back.
Yeah, or my unhinged 3x speed, but
yeah, it very much depends on the speed of the speaker.
Yeah,
I don't know if you and I would translate that well to 3x speed.
That's right.
But for the
that's
for the
great.
more
Look at that.
Thoughtful people, 3x speed can be great.
Yeah.
All right, so it has written a lot of skills here.
Yeah.
So let's peep at them.
And you can close the chat for now if you want. We can open it back later.
Yeah, true. This. Okay, so this is the one that I added the structure of up top, but no content. And so, this is nice because like I have only ever used freezed for this, but it is not like the package is, and then it's got that as a tip. Well, that's perfect.
Exactly. Yep.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, this is great. The other thing I could say is you could even have the model be like, okay, like create advanced examples in a samples directory under each skill, or like create like extra markdown files for a more in-depth thing. I don't think we need to do that, but like you could totally like take this so much further. Like this is just like a starting point. But you could see it already is going to be a much better time with like using this package. And you could eval it, honestly. You could copy the .agents to the example folder and then like open that up in a new workspace and like try to like be building with it. And then that way you could see if your skills are working as well.
Yeah, I do. I definitely want to kind of validate here. All right, I'm getting distracted reading this and figuring out like, did you accurately documented this? But yeah, it seems pretty good. So the other thing that I want to cover here is a tool that the Flutter team is working on that I have installed but not actually used myself. For now, I'm going to just accept all of these. That's fine. And I think I'm on a skills branch, so I'm just going to commit this in case we modify these later. It'll be clear V1 versus future modifications. So, and this will be initial batch of...
I also love the generate commit button too. It's so great.
Gemini. Oh yeah, wait, where's that? I've never really clicked.
Just that. If you don't have anything, like remove your text.
Icon. Up there. Nice.
Yeah,
okay. Wow, man, there'd been a snake, it would have bit me. didn't notice that at all. So there is a new thing that I'm going to bring in here. And it's not released yet. It's still in progress, but I got the blessing from the folks on the Flutter team who are working on it to talk about it here. So it's in the Flutter skills repository, in the tool directory, and there's a tool called Dart skills lint. And this is deterministic validation of skills. So there's no LLM calls here. It just makes sure that your skills, A, conform to the spec, B, any relative links that you have in your skills actually resolve.
Yeah, no broken links, which would be bad.
Right, no broken links. Everybody knows that as soon as you make a link, you're just going to turn around and break it and not remember that was there. So there's all, and like other things as well. There's kind of a pretty ambitious, very cool roadmap for this. They also want to vendor it because Dart is so great as like a runtime binary. So that I think they even want to like load this into NPM so people could download it, use it to verify their skills and not have any idea that they're even using a thing that uses Dart.
Yeah. Like the SAS tool. Like the SAS tool.
Oh, right. Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, wait, the SAS tool? It used to be built in Ruby, like the official one,
Dart,
the big one.
Dart SAS, or the new SAS one that everybody uses is like made with Dart and published to NPM.
This is a TIL. I had no idea. That's
and that was pre-Flutter, so it's still been going strong. Maybe something to pull up. Can you go to agentskills.io?
One word, agentskills.io.
Yeah. This is the canonical place for the standard. And if you click on specification on the left, this is like, if you're curious about skills, like this is the link that you should go to. This tells you everything that needs to be done, what is you can do to follow the spec, and what is open for interpretation. Yeah, it's super, super cool. And they give like a bunch of examples here. And then everybody has standardized on .agents/skills. So like you should just be able to open this up in any editor, and like most of them should work.
Yeah. So the where's the window that I'm looking for here? Okay. Is this it? Yes. So in the Flutter skills repository, I've just opened up the sub Dart skills lint directory, but like it has its own skills that I haven't really made much sense of yet. But anyway, if you want to check this out, it's in the Dart skills repository. So now I want to try to actually run it. So in the README of this, I'm going to...
It's just like a global tool that you install right now.
Yeah, so I've run Dart install from the directory. So it should be installed. I haven't even tried to actually execute it yet. I was just doing this during your soliloquy earlier. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to switch back to...
Do you need the root, or does it default to the current one, like agents/skills?
We could test that out. So I'll go to the root of this whole package, and then I'm going to run this. And again, I don't even know if it's on the path. Well, it's not really a path thing, I guess, because it's start run. Anyway, we'll see. So I'm going to try this. I'm not going to pass anything. We'll see if it defaults to no pub spec found. Oh, interesting. I was already putting skills in as a mono repo. Except I don't have...
Does it need pub spec?
To do the skills? You know, I really should like make this actually a proper monorepo. I thought I had it one. I thought it was like using a workspace, but I am not using a workspace.
Also, one thing I wanted to bring up too. So we put the skills into .agent/skills. If you're publishing this on GitHub, they need to be in a top level skills directory. .agent/skills is for your workspace skills. Like a skills directory lets like tools say like when they're installing skills, they can give it your repo / the name of your or whatever, and it'll look for that skills directory and install it to agents/skills. So
I see.
Yeah,
so I should probably rename this, right?
Yeah. One's for authoring, one's for usage.
I see. So I'm gonna move agents. Actually, what I'll do is make a new directory called skills, and then I'll move agents skills * into skills.
Yep.
And then we can remove RF agents. Okay, now I still have my mono repo question. So I guess I'm just going to add.
You could just copy those, yeah.
I think what I really want to do is continue to be lazy and say, convert this repository into a mono repo. And the skills directory has to be in the root. Like I couldn't put it in the packages directory.
Just for what the standard and convention is. Everybody's putting it in the top. You could put them under. It's just like default tools aren't going to look for it. There's like a couple common top level folder names it checks. But the also thing that you could do is, you have your top level skills for publishing, but you might have folders underneath for like development, and you could have a script that keeps them in sync.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna quickly convert this into command not found Dart. What are you talking about? What sandbox is this thing in where it's not finding Dart? That was pretty odd. Little breadcrumb in the thinking transcript from Gemini.
Yeah.
If you saw that, I was like, couldn't find Dart, but boy, is it right there. Oh, nice. I've got double slashes here for great justice. All right, let me pull up some chat again while this cooks. I've missed quite a bit. Okay, so all right, so Lucas asked a question and other people were responding to it. So it's probably a good question, and I'm just going to throw it up and read it live. Don't really know what it says yet. Is there a good resource on what are all of the .md files for agents and when to use which? Oh, okay. I think that we probably got this when we went to the
resource. Yeah, we definitely covered that at the beginning, so definitely watch that.
And also, where did that window go? Is it here? Yeah. So agentskills.io, I think, also helps answer this question. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so scrolling down in chat, and people talking about setting up new project. Yeah, I think for their we'll probably hopefully get to some of that, and then having scripts to kind of maintain your skills and pull in the skills that you want. I think will be valuable.
And also, just like as a rule of thumb, yes, skills need to be up to date, but I think skills change a lot less frequently than people think. Because they're focused on a task, if I'm doing something with native C and binding to a library, how often is FFI actually changing? It's probably changing once a year, on a new syntax. So these skills will need to be updated, but they're not every single point release needing to be refreshed. And if they are, there probably should be a rules file or something else, or being dynamically pulled in through search. Or MCP servers, that too.
To expected location. Okay, so now it's got a plan. I don't really care. I'm sure it knows how to do a workspace, so I'm just going to let it do that. This is a pretty darn good question, and we couldn't have a better guest to expound on this. Why are we using Gemini Flash and not Gemini 3 High? Rody, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I think for a variety of reasons. One, it's going to be faster and cheaper, but also Gemini 3 is very, very capable. And my goal with working with any agent is, what is the smallest model I can use that accomplishes the most amount of tasks? And then I switch to the higher models as I get into very specific things. For example, if I'm working in shaders and wanting to debug a bunch of UI stuff, I'm probably going to use a thinking model or a bigger one. But for most general coding tasks, skills give you so much information and explicit guidance that there's not a lot that Gemini has to guess on. It just reads the task and does the task. So
yeah, I feel like this change that it made is like obviously not right. But anyway, I'll validate the accuracy of this workspace again later. That's not really what we've gathered here to do today. Now, for my next trick, I will return to, what is this drop down? What is even going on here? Where is the terminal? This is what I want. For my next trick, I will repeat my validate. Huh. I thought it would be, there we go. Okay, lint. So now I'll still run it just kind of plainly, and we'll see if it finds the agents file. But we know the path to cannot override workspace packages. Oh, that's why it didn't let me do that, because it's not allowed. I see. Well, then, that's fair. Let's validate. Could not find package, Dart skills lint. Okay, so this is just not a very workspace-friendly package.
But yeah.
Yeah, so this thing doesn't want to work on workspaces, which is fine. I'll inform.
We will file that later.
We'll file that bug later. So what we're going to do instead is move the skills into packages, data layer. We'll just put it all in there.
I'd probably copy it into a .agent folder. Yeah.
We just have like Git will help us if
I see.
This nonsense. Okay, so now I'm going to go into packages, data layer. Okay, so let's try again. Dart skill. Wait, could not. Oh, I can't read. It wasn't saying it, this error actually had nothing to do with it being a monorepo. It just is that my installation didn't fully work. So let's go back here. And what I ran was dart install dot from within the tool directory here. But I think I might need to do like, let me try to do a source. Let's do a pub get global. No, what is it?
Dart pub get global.
Maybe -- source. Oh, I have to spell source correctly. Oh, come on. Okay, so let's now do a cat.
I always do history.
History, yeah, exactly. So now we're going to search for global. I know that should be there.
Yeah.
Oh, have I not done this ever from?
Oh, maybe, yeah.
It must have been on my local machine. So dart pub global activate, and then I'll need to do like source. So dart pub global activate.
Oh, because this is the package. Got it.
Yeah, source. This maybe? This might work. It didn't work. So -- source. Hosted. Oh, path I have to do. Oh.
Maybe //
I'm just going to Google this.
Yeah.
I think you have to use both commands, I think. This is why dart install was added, but dart install is not working, so it's cold comfort for us in this second. But I'm also maybe just using dart install incorrectly. How globally install, how to train your dragon. How globally install dart package from source.
Maybe while you're doing that, I could show my screen with another agent skills.
Sure. So I need to eject myself.
And let me share a different screen.
Okay. Oh, it's source -- source space literally the word path and then the path. That's what I needed.
Okay. I should have my screen ready. So while Craig is working on that, one of the things I wanted to talk about is like let me see if I can make it a little bit better. So skills are becoming just really useful in like a lot of different types of domains and places. For those that don't know, we just released Gemma 4, and Gemma 4 is an on-device model that is like really powerful, can do reasoning and a bunch of other stuff. But one of the things that they launched with it was this Google AI Edge Gallery, and it allows you to try out like all the different features, which is really cool. But one of the things I was really excited about is they launched this agent skills on device with Gemma 4, which I highly suggest you check it out. And the source code is public and open source as well. And what that means is inside of this agent gallery, just like we talked about, you have two things that the model does, which is discover a skill, based on the ones that you're providing, and then also reading the skill or calling a skill function is exactly what you can do on device as well. So you can use skills for like building applications, but you can also use them to progressively disclose context to the model. So in this case, we have like a bunch of very scope things like generate a password or scan this QR code or do whatever. And it's using the on-device model to read the skills and to load it into context. And it shows like how much compression you can get for a vast amount of things, but be able to only show it to that small model when you really need it. Because like there's no way that you could load in a bunch of MCP servers and a bunch of rule files. And so I'm really excited by this because it just shows like how portable skills are and like how much like it maps to like how we think about things. Like, you probably have different project folders with various like files and documents that you're working on. And just, you only want to have one thing in your head at a time. And so this kind of allows you to kind of fill that in.
Yeah. And you've been doing some really darn cool stuff with this kind of edge LLM exploration. I described you yesterday as a mad scientist,
Yeah.
which is maybe underselling the level of both mad and science.
Yeah.
But the and that demo ended up just being not quite ready for the show today. But I think this, this whole thing here seems like very, very, very cool. And
but also just showing that if it can work for a small model, the bigger the model is, the better you're going to have with the ability to read and do multiple things at once.
Yeah. All right. So I don't know if we're going to be able to use the linter. I just DM'd the author and showed him the error that I'm getting and what I have been doing. And I have no idea if he's at his desk right now.
No worries. Yeah.
So we'll have to plot along sans linter, I fear. But that linter is there and it will be vendored correctly and easy to install at some point in the future. And it'll have a better developer experience than I have just telegraphed it having. So, Rody.
Any other questions that people are having too?
Yeah, are there? Let me see here. I was going to resume slapping together these new skills and try to use them, but we should definitely get to any questions first. Oh, Randall's got a question for you, Rody. Do you have any comments on, oh yeah, you asked this earlier. I apologize. I started and then missed it. On this particular repo, theoretically Google's workflow implemented as skills.
Yeah, there's some really cool stuff coming out from a lot of different teams. And I'm very excited by all the various ways that we can use skills to do even non-coding tasks like workspace stuff or doing things like creating PowerPoints and slides or working with like generating media or all the various things that make up like your daily workflow. Skills are just working at every point in that process. So yeah, I'm very much following all of those, and they're really cool.
Nice. I am not following them, which is why this particular stream has had something of a interview vibe to it. Okay, I'm committing this workspace conversion. That's probably not correct because I haven't tried to run it or anything. Oh, that's not what I want. I think the command key on my keyboard is like starting to break, and when the command key doesn't work, you get really weird behavior.
And also like very important key on macOS.
Yes. Hence it breaking because I Press it as much as any other key. All right. So I've written some skills. They're not on GitHub yet. They're only local.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people write their own packages and then use those packages in their own libraries. Maybe it's more common than I'm expecting. But let's say, Rody, what is your recommended path? Like, what should I do right now?
Okay.
I've written these skills. They're not yet available where I want to use them.
Yeah. So let's do, can I see your file explorer?
You can.
Let's do, is data layer the name of your package?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I was just making sure it wasn't the plugin you were trying to run earlier. Okay. So I would maybe from the root, or wherever you want, I would create an example directory, or maybe inside data layer.
Oh yeah, I have a very old sample here that I don't even look at anymore.
But I would create a fresh one if you want, or if you wanted to like wipe this one out. But basically, we should copy the skills into .agent/skills inside of the example directory and open that up in a workspace for anti-gravity.
All right. Well, I'm willing to. Yeah, let me see if we can just use this because it's probably stale.
Okay, that's probably fine.
And I will copy these skills. Actually, okay. So let's make dir example. Oh, I have to go back. Make dir example .agents.
And then also
skills. And then I think I need a -p for this.
Yeah, which is great.
And now I can copy everything from agents. Nope, skills is the root thing.
Yep.
So I'll copy all of this into examples, agents, skills.
Yep. Okay.
Oh, and I needed to do a recursive copy.
Oh. Okay. And then I would do AGY
into that example.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And that would open up.
So I don't remember.
And you just want to bump up the font size.
Yeah, I'm hitting Command plus. Oh, either anti-gravity was still loading, or my Command key wasn't working. I'm ordering a new keyboard today.
Nice. Okay, so by default, they should be loaded now.
Yeah. So how?
So we can test it by doing a / in the chat. Yeah, and so it's loaded all the skills.
Amazing. That's a great little tidbit there. I love the prove to yourself that the thing is turned on.
Yeah. And then,
all right.
Then you could literally just, for you as the author, I would probably in the chat ask a question that you think that it would need a skill for or something like that.
So the first thing I'm going to have to do is remind myself. Oh, yeah. Okay. So also, this will be very interesting because I don't know whether or not I'm going to have whatever question I come up with, like, will that even be in the skills that were just hastily slapped together? But I guess maybe I'll start by actually looking at the skills that were, in fact, written, and then I'll ask something about that. So maybe, what did it even put here? Oh, one of the greatest strengths is its extensibility. Oh, that's flattering.
This is a rare.
I have no idea where that's true. Yeah. Like, it was written by the, such a smart person. It's like, was it though?
Yeah. I love it when it's like any model's like, wow, this is like a clever and unique approach to how to do this.
I know. It's like, clever is kind of a swear word in programming. So I don't know if I'm happy about this. All right. Maybe a retry. Yeah. Okay. So retry. Or like TTL, does that have this? Yeah. Oh, I don't know if it put any TTL stuff in here though. Do you have any? No. Oh, this is the wrong file. Does anything talk about
try
TTL?
Searching. It should search across. Yeah, it looks like it does.
Okay. Nice. So this is in the managing cache. Oh, perfect. Great job. Okay. This would have definitely taken it at least a second. It would have had to have read all the code to do this. So I have this click repository. What does this even do again? Oh, yeah. So expire clicks in 5 seconds. Oh, I think I'm already doing TTL stuff here. So I have this, and then do I have to refresh or are they going to go away on their own? I don't remember how this thing works. It's also like pre-stream. So if I refresh, they'll probably go away. Oh, no, I don't know how this works.
So yeah, you could ask for a new feature that you don't have in there yet, or you could say like,
oh, absolutely.
refactor.
Yes, streaming. So streaming I added after the fact.
Okay.
So what I should do is, yeah. That's such a great. That's implement streaming of the clicks data set. Actually, I don't even know if this is possible because I've kind of assumed that streaming comes from the server. So I may be asking it impossible.
Also, like, for people that are, working in this, like, I feel like when you're using agents with skills, it's very important to be a design engineer for this kind of stuff, right? Because like skills allow you to like be very opinionated, be very like prescriptive on exactly what needs to be done. Like push back as much as you can on the models so it fits your representation of how you're trying to build your code bases. Like this is it's okay to go slower and to make sure that you're establishing a pattern and to like be very tested too, because this will only help both you and the agents like pick up new context in the chat and you come to it a week later.
Okay, so it is reading. It looked at all the skills. Streaming data. Great. That's one bad thing about having every single one be called skill.md is it's not immediately obvious which skill that is.
I'm used to that because I do barrel files in my Flutter project. So like everything is screen.dart or widget.dart or service.dart. But I love web routing URLs. And so like for me, I really love like the way it's divided by the path.
So we're gonna I don't know how much of a example we're gonna, I don't know how much we're actually learning from this exercise.
So because I guess
it read a lot of code.
Yeah, it was discovering the code base, but I think the example is showing that like you're augmenting, like it's not like a skill doesn't mean that you're going to get a one shot with the model. It means that it's directed on where it needs to explore and it has the context going into it as opposed to like stumbling around in the dark with a flashlight, and I think that's the really, really key difference here is you're just going to get a higher quality result faster.
Okay, I think this plan looks vaguely correct without thinking about it too deeply. So I'm going to let it make an attempt here.
And if not, we'll confidently attempt.
Yep. Randall points out for episode 88, you need a piano theme. I was also thinking kind of, what's the Back to the Future?
Nice
vibes for this particular episode.
Actually, if you ever want me to talk about the Flutter piano app too, like that one is really interesting because I'm doing PCM audio on the web with Flutter and it works pretty well.
Yeah, that seems you just showed me that app I think 2 days ago and I've never seen it before and it is very cool. Monglor says, Randall, I was hoping it could be automated, semi-automated, similar to the Dart Skills lint tool. I clicked on this because I saw Dart Skills lint. Yeah, I think a lot of this stuff is going to pretty much have to be automated or you're going to drive yourself a little crazy.
You mean for creating skills and all that stuff?
Yeah, maintaining them, keeping them in sync.
So, but I guess my point with that is I view it as documentation. Yes, you can automate a lot of the process, but like the more time and thought you put into like how it's being created will only help like people's experience like in the agents themselves. Like for example, like you could do the bare minimum, which is just like generate them from like some other source and like package them up. That's already going to be better than nothing. But I feel like if you're really thinking about tasks and like what makes your package great and the experiences that people are going to have, the do's and the don'ts and the examples and the whatever, like the more like extra things you put into it are only going to increase like that user experience. So like with anything, like, you know, it's up to you, but I think it does pay off the more you invest into it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I do want to put some effort into making these skills like thorough and complete so that I can just continue to use this package and not watch
Yeah,
it.
and I'm working on skills for signals as well too. You know, making sure I do the exact same thing I'm talking about. So
I don't know. I think I'm potentially asking it a basically impossible thing, but I'd have to think. Yeah. So watch here. How are you actually working? Maybe Hive has watch functionality. I'm not really sure. I don't know if I'm asking it an even possible thing, but don't know. Yeah. Let's find out. Refresh here. I also I don't even fully remember. I think the question would be, yeah, I don't think this is going to work, but that's okay. I think I asked it an impossible thing. I don't even remember how this, I think this just was supposed to show local caching. So like if I refresh, we still see these three.
Yeah. I guess like a better test for this would be to delete everything in lib.
So who knows?
you could delete everything in lib and say like, I want to do this thing, and then like have it generate.
Yeah, let's try that.
You can keep the same pubspec YAML, but I would probably, yeah.
Yeah, so Git will keep track of everything for us here. I'm going to just accept this so I can close it. I'm going to delete, what is in Hive? Oh, Hive adapters. Yeah, that's fine. I would definitely need some skills for that, I think. All right, whatever. I'm going to delete it all.
I would just, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And let's have a new, and I'm just going to put it on,
I would do a fresh chat. Yeah.
Yeah. Fresh chat. And, I meant to do that. Fresh chat and just fast instead of planning. So write a sample app demonstrating the following features from data, from package, data layer, and package data layer Hive.
And then
those should be.
And then at the very end of this, make sure to say this is like an already set up project, so feel free to implement it in lib, because like it's gonna see the files and make it weird.
Good point. All right, so generating simple records using local sources to persist those records across launches of the app.
Maybe like caching with TTL.
Yeah, caching with TTL and UI controls to adjust that, those caching rules.
You could also have it say like simulate errors with the retry and things like that as well.
Oh yeah, we could do that. Add a remote source which talks to a fake implementation which has controllable errors, and then use retry logic to demonstrate. I'll say exercise retry logic against that fake remote source, and display all errors even when caught and retried as shad cn toasts.
Nice. And do you want to use planning or fast for this?
I'm potentially setting myself up for trouble by doing this much in fast, so maybe now I'll go back to planning.
Yeah, that's what was my only. I mean, it probably could do it. I wouldn't be. It's more like it could normalize the prompt, basically.
Yeah, I think having the implementation plan will probably help us here. All right, going back to chat. I have the latest version of anti-gravity. Whenever I give it any command, it's giving an error. Oh, well, what error are you getting? Ahmad Khan.
Definitely please reach out on the forum. We do check that out.
Multiple times try to report issue, but that error is not getting fixed. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, definitely go to the AI forum. We have a anti-gravity sub-channel.
Where is that? I don't actually know what you're talking about, Rudy.
I can send you a link that we can put in the description.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I don't actually care about any of this. I'm sure it did a good job.
Full send.
And I'm just going to, yeah.
I mean, for the demonstration purposes, yes. In a real thing, you'd probably want to review it, but more. I also personally I have mindset to always proceed, and I like to default to steering the agent. So I'm sending follow-up comments as it's going, and we'll have it built that way.
Oh, yeah, I do that sometimes too. I'll be like, oh, I noticed you just did something wrong, blah, 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 blah. And it will eventually incorporate it. It's kind of got to finish what it's thinking about first. This is a great question again from JT McFarland, your third or fourth great question. Are there any skills or agentic abilities going to be standard with Flutter project installs? Yeah, so there is an official Flutter skills initiative underway, and I think it would have potentially already been released, but folks working on it are being sucked into Cloud Next and IO shenanigans as well. So it's very far along, and stay tuned. I believe that there's going to be some announcements about that in the fairly near future.
And maybe let us know if there's like some that you're expecting to see, or like do you definitely want to be there, because that would also be useful.
Yes, absolutely that. Oh my gosh, they literally told us to say that, and I was about to forget. Thank you. Yes, they want your feedback on any skills that you would love to see come standard. So please weigh in, and places to do that, of course, GitHub on the Flutter skills repository. You can just tag people on Twitter. You can file issues. Like all these are really, really great ways to basically, just voice what skills you think would be good.
Or even if people are working on them and they're like, I think this would be good as a Flutter one instead, like, please let us know too.
Okay, let's see how this worked. I didn't even tell it what data we wanted to use here. I just said saving
open up the file
records.
explorer, having it check for errors.
Oh, yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. All right, so the skills need some work probably. There's just
tons
of issues.
This could also just be like a Flash thing. I didn't see it run the Dart MCP tool to analyze.
Okay, so I'm going to put it back on high for this and say fix the errors.
Yep. Now,
really
so something that I found to work really well in this specific scenario is I have a very small rules file that says try to always look for skills and MCP servers if it's relevant for the task, and always check for errors, format and then lent. So then it's then for that project, after it's doing these tasks, it'll usually try to do it.
Yeah, when I have it on high, normally it basically always does that. Maybe Flash needs to be prompted a little bit. Rody, do you know what's going on here? I don't think I have
it's running in the wrong terminal.
Yeah,
I've had that issue even with like VS Code, where like the built-in terminal is not the same as the ZSH one, and so like it would not have the same type of context and tools.
Yeah, it's weird, but also then like it like derps for a minute and then it kind of rights the ship.
Yeah, I know.
Because like
I wonder.
That's why it's not.
Sometimes it might run it in a bash terminal, which may have the different exported paths.
Yeah, or like no path.
Yeah, but I can
at all.
Yeah.
All right. So this is probably going to be the final adventure of this stream. So hopefully we get some code that actually compiles shortly and we can run something, and then I'll sort out later whether I want to keep any of it.
So maybe while, it's kind of turning away on that, like do you have any questions about like, so far what you've discovered on skills, and like thinking like, are there still gaps that you're in your what you're thinking about with them, or are you finding ways that you're like, I can see how I can use that here, but
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Also, folks in the chat, feel free to
yeah.
type out your own answers to that question. But I think the biggest thing to me about this is the cost savings, because and for packages as well, that I think that's honestly a really big place for this to, because your own code, your own patterns, your own things, like your rules files are well established at this point, and they kind of capture like, no, we do this, we don't do that. You could have done that, like that's reasonable, but we decided not to do it. So capturing those decisions in rules files is not new. But for just kind of like, oh, here's an irregular tool where that tool is like some library that is maybe not as well documented publicly as like a block or a river pod or something where it is just truly in the training data. It does seem to be like almost certainly extremely high value to just have the absolute latest version of whatever packages you're using all captured as skills for speed of use and accuracy, and thus cost savings. Wow, this is
yeah.
Where
So
would I file bugs for this? This is like totally.
What I would probably do is
I'm not
run
struggling.
Dart analyze and then just copy the output into the.
It's like trying to read my music and pictures directory.
Yeah, we'll see. I can work with it, see if there's some weird thing, but normally I don't have that issue. So
yeah. All right. Well, at this point, we were, as I teased earlier, it was very possible that we were going to have the final closing of the loop not quite fit in, but I think we veered into not wonderful television territory, and this isn't even about skills. This is just about probably some like issue with the terminal in anti-gravity. It has nothing to do with skills.
Something, you brought up a good point, but I think
this is so funny.
One thing I would like people to think about when they're like building these things is like, think about skills as a form of distribution for your new features. And this is an opportunity to use skills to help with the toil, right? So like, let's say I introduce a crazy breaking change from signal versions from like 3 to 7 or whatever. And like it completely redid like some way state was happening. Well, with skills, it actually offers the opportunity as developers for the first time to make those really mundane, tedious tasks really easy for the agent to go just run and reconcile on your code base. Like, for example, like if, like I wish we had skills for Dart null safety migration, or like the different types of things that we've had to do, Python 2 to 3 and stuff like that, because skills are really great to say, this is the format, this is what the old thing was, and this is what the new thing is. Like, just go per file and migrate it. And if you think about that when you're like making changes to your libraries, just include that and say, here's our skill for migrating from this version to this version, and people can load that in and check it as they need to.
Yeah. A couple good questions here. Someone said, well, JT said, Riverpod v3 too new and breaking, so maybe need some skills. Randall asks, will skill discovery recurse and or follow symlinks?
Skills are only a flat top level directory per skill in a skills directory. It will, I mean, if it's a symlink, it'll read the file that the symlink is from. And if the skill includes files or other types of contexts, the model can decide to read those as well. And you could even have skills that say read these other skills too. So
yeah, that's what I think he meant by recursing.
But it's not like an automatic thing. You'd have to like in your description say like, you know, these
point out to go there. Yeah. All right, folks. So I think we have probably done it for today. I'll have a little second of housekeeping here, then let Rody have the final word. I think this might be the final observable Flutter for about a month. I might try to sneak one in between Cloud Next and IO, but I'm going to be out of town a little bit, then out of town some more in Las Vegas for Cloud Next. If anyone's coming,
Yeah, let us
I
know.
know. Yeah, Rody and I will both be there. I know the Flutter crowd is not typically necessarily like the enterprise cloud crowd. But hey, if you're there, we'd love to say hi. There'll be a big Flutter booth, big demo, and it'll be fun. But anyway, so the show will go dark for a couple weeks, and then I'll be back, and then IO will be another distraction, and then we'll get into summer programming. So Rody, thanks for coming on. Any final thoughts?
No, none for me. Thanks so much for having me. I'm very passionate about skills. This will not be the last time people are hearing from skills from me. So definitely let me know on socials or wherever you can find me, all your feedback, and would love to chat more.
Okay, nice. Well, folks, that is going to do it for today. So as I said, I will not be back next week, but I'll be back in a couple weeks. And until then, everybody, happy fluttering.
See ya.